Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Snapdown Wrestling. I'm your host Tommy Lynch, and we are produced by Fans Only Sports Network. Tonight, our showrunner is Nick LeBlanc. We have a great show tonight. Today is really the second week of wrestling practice, which is absolutely amazing. Nobody thought this was going to happen. I did. I always stayed positive, put out the positive energy, asked you guys, the listeners and the coaches, to put out the positive energy. We're going to have a season. We're going to have a season. We're going to have a season. It's worked. We're having a season, and it started last Monday. So the first week of practice is in the books, and I couldn't be happier. Well, I could be a little happier if it was where it's supposed to be in the winter, which was supposed to start December 2nd, as every other state in the country started and had a full season in the books before the Nationals, which was April 23rd. And basically having the Nationals at that stage for Rhode Island is the equivalency of having spring training, or the World Series before spring training. So that's where we're at with that. But we did have some good showing in the Nationals. In fact, the best year yet, with 7 All-Americans, a national champion as well in Nick Fine. We talked about that last week. In fact, we had Nick on the show. But this show, as I said, is very important because it's the first week of wrestling practice, and we're all very excited. I tried to have some of the representatives from the divisions here tonight, and I got most of them, so we can talk about that as the divisions go. We have 3 divisions this year. Let me just reference my notes. 3 divisions, and it's basically a Division 1 A and B, Division 2 A and B, Division 3 A and B. And we have some of the representatives with us tonight. We have Colin Smith, who's the head coach from Cumberland High School. We have Victor Calderon from Juanita Sanchez. Vin Macucci from Barrville, and Ed German should be joining us shortly. So without wasting any time tonight, because there's going to be a lot to say, I'm going to need the full hour. Nick, let's bring everybody up into the mix, out of the lounge, get them on screen, and start talking. Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, Tom. How are you guys?
Excellent. Welcome to Snapdown Wrestling. Thank you for being on the show. It's a late show. It's a 9:00 show, and I know, a lot of people go to bed a little bit earlier, but thank you. This is your bedtime. This is not my bedtime. I don't go to bed till midnight, but every night. I haven't since I was 8 years old, but neither here nor there. Thank you again for joining us and staying up, as well as the viewers staying up and watching the show. We're waiting for Ed German to join. He's going to be joining us very shortly as well. And as everybody knows, Ed is our vice president of our Coaches Association. But here we are, guys. First week is in the books. How'd your week go? Starting with Colin, because you are, by the way, for those of you that don't know, and everybody should know, that Cumberland was state champions last year. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
Excellent showing, excellent team. But how are you looking this year? Last year you looked spectacular. This is a different year. What do you got going on over there in Cumberland?
Obviously, it's a little bit different with everything going on. I think numbers are down across the board in our state. No different with us. We're sharing a lot of different sports. Unfortunately, I think some students didn't do as well in the classroom with the pandemic setting. So I think it's affected all of us, and same with us. I think we're still doing pretty well. We have, about like 24, 25 wrestlers on our team. They're working really hard. A lot of them have been working hard all year. It's been tough with some of the students that are taking other sports. We have some students that are playing baseball and lacrosse, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't feel uncomfortable at all, because that's a tough decision, and especially seniors shouldn't have to make that decision and choose sports they've been doing their whole life. So I don't want to put that added pressure on them. We had some students that chose wrestling as well, and I know it's going to be tough for them to miss the other sports that they're doing. Yeah, and we got off to a good start. The kids are working really hard in the room. It's just hard for me to adjust. I expect a lot out of my kids, and we push them pretty hard. So I've been really trying to gauge their ability to work out in a mask, and I've always kind of had a good feel for how much they can endure during practice, but never with their masks on this long. So trying to figure out when to give them breaks, how many rounds or how long a drill can go has been probably the most challenging for me because I don't want to overdo it and try to figure out what their breathing intake is.
Right. Yeah. It's hard. Wrestling 6 minutes, when you're head to head with, like, let's call it like a state finals, is hard enough, on the respiratory system, because those that haven't wrestled out there, you could be a great athlete, think you're in great shape. You get out there, try to wrestle, you can't last 1 period. It's a 3-period match. Now to put a mask on and pull it back that much more, it's even more difficult. So I've watched my practice as well this week, and the kids are adjusting to it. The first couple of days was very tough when we were doing, live wrestling, but the adjusting to it somewhat. But we're all in the same boat. So listen, put a mask on a wrestler, put a mask on a wrestler, it's still equal, even whether you're used to it or not. The cream's going to rise to the top. Champion's going to be champion. You're just going to endure what you have to do for the sport. We're even lucky to have a season. Vin Mikuchi, how you doing, buddy? I want you to weigh in here on your thoughts on what's going on with your practice, starting with the numbers. Before I get into that, my numbers are right with you, Colin. I'm at 24 to 26 wrestlers consistently, which is a blessing based on.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. Half what I was last year, but still ready and blessed that I have those numbers. Ben, where you at?
So right now we're my very first week in the room. I've got to absolutely 100% agree with everything that Colin just said. It's very, very different. We're all in very uncharted waters here, trying to gauge air intake, these masks, how it's affecting everything. I had 7 kids in my practice room for the first week because we were still playing football. Now this week coming up is when I'll inherit my football players back. Even with them, normally I'm a team of maybe 19, 20. We're down to 13 overall is what I'm going to end up rostering. So, I mean, the numbers are definitely impacted. Like you said, like the other coaches are all feeling. I think that through whether it be online learning, whether it be, whatever the circumstances were for those particular kids, I think that there was definitely a grades impact. We definitely lost kids to grades. We definitely lost kids to a number of different reasons. I've got 2 kids that they wouldn't come out because they've got to wear the mask and they're severe asthmatics. So where before we would be able to just give them the shot of the inhaler and things like that, we could move right along. We can't do it this year. So I did lose 2 to asthma and concerns with that. But I'm going to end up posting a roster of 13. I'm actually really happy with where we're at for what we're dealing with. And again, I mean, I'm basically just going to be reiterating Colin what he said. It's very difficult to practice them, see, okay, where are we going to gain a breath advantage? Where are we not? One of the things I was doing was I was having the kids get ridden out quite a bit, putting the pressure up top to see, all right, how are we going to be able to maintain? How are we going to be able to hip out, do anything that we can do to get off of that bottom position? It's like you said, it is an equal match because they're both in these masks. However, when you're on bottom and you're trying to come out, you're definitely the guy in the suffering position. I think we can all agree to that. So when you get, even when you pull that escape, what do we got left for wind? What do we got left on the inside? So there's no other way to say it than it's uncharted territory. The team is definitely smaller, but I think that we're going to do all right. I'm really excited that we're able to wrestle with what we have, and I'm really looking forward to the season.
Yes, as we are as well. Not really sure what we were gonna get. Again, you got a year where they're allowing two sport athletes in the spring season, which in the past they would not allow.
Yeah, we're fortunate. Our AD did allow. So I've got 4 guys that are also going to be participating in lacrosse, and I've got 2 guys that are going to be participating in track. And the schedules are actually working out really well. So wrestling isn't really interfering on the other game days for the other sports. They're really not hitting heads. I'm extremely fortunate for what we've got.
Yeah, across the board, everybody's just really being a lot more lenient than they were in the past, especially about practices. And my view on it is, hey, listen, you know what? If you're working out and you're running and you're building your stamina, if you're doing lacrosse 3 days a week and you come to wrestling practice 3 days a week, I'm going to be able to cover what I need to cover with you as far as your technique and the technical side of it, because there's a few components. One's technical, strength, speed in wrestling, and the other, of course, is heart. But if as long as they're working out, I'm fine with them coming to my practice 3 days a week. I'll cover with them what I have to cover in that time. So extremely fortunate. Again, some of my wrestlers are playing lacrosse, some of my top wrestlers actually. So fortunate that we also are allowing the two sport athlete deal. Because those are 2 wins that are going to happen 85 to 95% of the time. These 2 are very key to my game plan this year. And Colin, are you in a situation where you're having the 2 sport athletes, or has that been shut down for you?
Yeah, our schools actually said no to that. Unfortunately, it's tough. We definitely have some kids that are playing that would have played 2 sports. We have a lot of kids that so some of my younger guys are playing baseball actually, and then some of my seniors are playing lacrosse. And then
Really?
even some of the kids on my team had to make the decision to wrestle over play lacrosse, which I think is going to be tough for them throughout the whole year as well. But no, they said they didn't want to do it in the fear that if it's just overexposure, I guess, of multiple kids that they were part of and shutting down instead of one program 2. I to an extent understand that, but I think it's really tough, especially when you're dealing with seniors that have been playing these sports since they were, in grade school, and now you're telling them they have to decide that they can't play that sport anymore. It's really tough. I would have liked it to be up to the coach to make that decision if we're willing to make that chance.
I think they should have given you that levity there and leniency to make that decision. Cumberland usually coming in with
let the kids make the decision.
40, or let the kids make the decision. Have some type of democracy or some type of vote where you can, weigh in. Parents and students, athletes should have been able to really make that decision. I like to say I feel for you, but you still got 25. I you know what I mean? But you're usually 40 plus. A program.
Yeah, no, we spent a lot of time into it. I have the luxury of being a teacher in the school and department head of PE at Cumberland, so I'm in there quite a bit. One of my assistants is a teacher there as well. So, it's tough, and I feel that we definitely have one of the bigger programs, but there's a lot of work put involved in it, and it's tough to watch something that you spent over a decade trying to build, and then to have your numbers get cut in half becomes frustrating.
Yeah, it definitely does. A program that was.
I'm sorry. The one thing I do want to jump in on is even somebody like Colin, where he's got the tournament every year, the Gorman tournament in Cumberland.
Yeah.
When you've got those bigger teams and you could say, hey, we might be able to get out there with Cumberland or with a Cranston West, or when you're a fighting team and Vic, you might agree with this, when you've got a Division II or Division III team and you're saying, hey, we can hit one of these bigger schools. Do we want to do it? That's a moneymaker for us. We'll pull more kids based on, believe it or not, his numbers. So when they're saying, hey, Cumberland is the top dog right now, and we've got a chance to jump into this tournament, we might get to see some of what they're doing. we might be able to learn from it and do well, and we do. And it does nothing but help our programs.
Yeah, I
So
totally
to hear
agree.
that
Because we do the same thing.
Yep,
We do the
going
same
down
thing.
to
We try to get into some Division I matches every year, and just to give kids a little feel of it, and know what
Victor.
a full team looks like, and how to really bang heads.
Victor. Oh, here comes. This is a picture of you back in the day with Giblin when he was just a little kid for CLCF. Sean Giblin, assistant coach for Hope, 4-time state champion for Cranston
Look at that.
West.
I was bigger than I was bigger than Coleman. He's 6'6" now.
Yep, and that's so funny. And you're how tall are you, Vic?
4.
No, 4.
Without
What?
shoes. Without shoes. 5'4".
4'6". No. Victor, by the way, guys, was my first coach at CLCF, as well as 10,000 other kids. So I've known Vic for a very long time, and just
Remember going up to Hofstra University in that tournament?
Yeah.
The Carlstons, Rusty, and Scotty.
Yeah.
That
So
was fun.
that being said, you're at Juanita Sanchez now. You're Division III.
Yeah.
How you looking? Because you had some tough kids last year. Your biggest problems were numbers, and since we're talking about all of us, now especially having numbers problems, where are you at? How are you looking over there at Juanita Sanchez?
My biggest practice was 10 kids so far. Today I had 5 kids because it's a Monday, so it's a I don't know how they do it in Providence, but I also work at Providence Country Day. And I gotta say, at Providence Country Day, I don't think they missed maybe the 5 days that the governor told us that they couldn't go in. That was the only 5 days they missed at PCD. And Providence, they're still not in school. They're still, they're B day, A day, whatever. So today must have been B day where nobody came to school. And those kids have to get a ride. They're not neighborhood schools in Providence. You pick your school. I got some kids that live on the south side. They have to take 2 buses to get to the school. So it's like,
Wow.
That's the problem I'm having.
Right.
I lost a couple. I lost my 2 captains to football injuries. One, a really bad ACL injury, MCL, ACL, some nerve damage. He came in 4th last year. So we had, and it was the last day of practice too. My 145, he's out. He's getting an MRI tomorrow. So I go, it's frustrating, but I can't let this stress me out. I can just go with the flow. One of my 120, who was pretty tough the last few years, a senior now, he opted to run track, which they came in 2nd in the state last year, his 4x400. But I didn't know until today that they could do dual sports. So I know he'll jump on board. I have to talk to the track coach to see how we can work it out.
Yeah, definitely. Which I'm talking with talk to the.
I'm gonna call him tomorrow morning.
Lacrosse,
baseball,
volleyball,
track.
baseball, all the sports that are going on right now, and have talked to them. And let me tell you something, coach out there, if you can't bend right now and say like, hey, no, it's my sport or nothing, then you're a bad coach. I'm just sorry. It's just the way it is. You have to bend. You have to let the kids play 2 sports. But, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, listen, you're playing a sport, you're playing another sport, you're splitting the time, but then you still got schoolwork. So, this is a delicate balance. But let me tell you something, kids, this is something that you have to devote to, all right, and get used to it, because in life, you're going to have to devote to certain things for weeks and months on end. And this is one of those times where you're going to learn at a very young age that there isn't going out and hanging with friends. There isn't going to Jim's house with 10 people and hanging out. And it's just one of those times where you're going to be like, what do I want to do? All right, I'm going to play 2 sports and I'm going to get my schoolwork done. So that's it. That's really all you got time for. You know what? When the summer comes, then you go out, you do what you got to do in the summer, you get ready for college for some of you seniors. But for now, you have to show dedication, because if you don't, the problem is that it puts everybody else at risk. All right. So Vic, definitely you got to talk to those coaches. I've reached out to the coaches and gained 6 more wrestlers from my team because I was able to talk coaches into, and it wasn't a very convincing thing. Like, oh, absolutely, yes. You know, anything we do reciprocating, especially with wrestling, the conditioning alone for any other sport is like, well, yeah, of course they're going to, you know, it's not like they're sitting around bowling. Nothing against bowlers. Colin, I know you're a big bowling guy, you know, but let's be realistic. I mean, you gotta let it happen. And again, Colin, sorry that your school is not on board with that, but I mean, you got some pretty good numbers anyway. And it's going to boil down to the holes in the lineup. And since you got as many as me, I'm going to pose a question to you. Do you have any holes in the lineup? Are you missing any?
To be honest, I'm not trying to not answer you. We're getting our weight certification done Wednesday, which I normally would have had that done in early November, a month before we would even started in-state dual meet season.
Sure.
So, and you know, I think like on paper, I have every weight class filled, but I don't know 100% if they're going to be able to get down in time from their weight certification. It's a very unique year with a quick turnaround from the time that we're going to do the certification to competition. And then I think it's June 9th that they have to be at their lowest weight.
Right. Which is, by the way, 2 pounds allowance across the board starting day 1.
So I'll have a better answer for you after Wednesday.
Okay.
But I have to be honest, I need to see what their skin fold's going to be and what it's going to allow them to do.
Yeah. I've been shuffling and backpedaling and trying to shuffle around and see who's where. And I haven't been making a big deal about the weight. I weighed in twice last week as opposed to my normal every day after practice weighing in. I'm not making a big deal about it. I'm not stressing about it. Where you are type of deal. We don't have the time that we had, but what we do have is we have the 2 pound allowance, which is a huge thing for me. So interesting season, interesting year, starting out with 2 pounds allowance, which had to be done based on the growth, because people that would have been wrestling 126 back in December 2nd through the season are now 132 and have no shot of getting to 126. So everything's kind of been bumped up a little bit. And with that, I'm going to take a short break. We're going to just move through a quick little commercial. And when we come back, we're going to be talking more about what's going on this season. There's a lot going on, a lot of movement, a lot of stuff not happening, a lot of guidelines and modifications that are happening that we're going to get into. So we still got a lot to cover. So hang in there. This is Snap-Down Wrestling, and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back from commercial break. This is Snap-Down Wrestling, powered by Fans Only Sports Network. And tonight our showrunner is Nick LeBlanc. Thank you, Nick. And we are here with Colin Smith, with Ben Micucci, and Victor Calderon. And we're supposed to be joined by Ed German, and I'm going to kind of go off show here, and I'm going to call Ed on air, live on speaker, and see what's going on, because we need Ed on the call, and we're going to put him on the spot right now.
What are you doing, Eddie?
Ed's our Coach Association Vice President, and just a wealth of knowledge and information, and is usually right there. Hello.
Hey,
Ed, how you doing, buddy? You are on the spot, and you are on Snapdown Wrestling via cell phone.
how's it going, big guy?
It's going good. Hey, I sent you a link. Is there any way that you can go to your email and see if that link is there? And if not, how we can get that link to you? Because I am on right now with Colin Smith, Vin Micucci, and Victor Calderon. And we just come back from commercial break, so I thought it was a good time to touch base with you and see if we can get you on.
I'm going on right now.
Okay, awesome. And by the way, 3 of the nominees for Coach of the Year are actually on this show tonight, right? Myself being 1, Colin being 2, and Vic being 3. 3 nominees for Coaches of the Year. And ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't know, because we didn't have a banquet this year, drum roll, brrr, Colin Smith as Coach of the Year. Congratulations, Colin, on that. And
Thank you.
again on the state championship.
God's Colin.
Thanks, Ed.
So, Ed,
Yes,
fearless leader, do you see that? Do you have the link?
just waiting for this to pop up. We'll probably be up in about 40 seconds.
Okay, we got the time. While we wait for Ed, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the Rhode Island Interscholastic League guidelines and what is and what should be and what could be and what shouldn't be. Okay, so members of schools are required to perform COVID tests for student athletes who opt to participate in wrestling. So, what does that mean exactly, Vin? Basically, the day of the match, as late as possible in the school day, we have to take a test. Is that what that? Am I reading that correctly?
With before every match you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, we are definitely mandatory by next test before every match. I know that one of the biggest concerns was who was going to administer them. I'm fortunate with my occupation. I can administer them to my own team. I've got the access to the DOH, and I've got the school portal where they keep that information, so I can administer them myself. I know other schools are kind of up in the air as far as how they're going to get those tests conducted.
Right.
But yes,
There's,
we
there's
are.
enough. There's enough tests. I'm in Narragansett High School on a daily basis. I'm over at Narragansett High School, and they have boxes and boxes and boxes of them, and they can conduct tests on the faculty, staff, as well as the students and athletes before games. So why one and not the other? I mean, we have to do this across the board. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ed German, head coach of Hope High School. Ed, how you doing, bud?
Good. How's it going?
It's going good. Very good. Considering, good for me, for Cranston West, good for Colin. Vin is having some numbers problems. Vic's having some number problems. How are you looking over there at Hope High School? Because, Hope on the rise every year, better and better and better and better and better. So I know you graduated some people last year, but this year, how are you looking? Everybody's just curious on how everybody is looking numbers wise, because wow, what a hit, but lucky to have a season. So it's going to be a different season, but we're all curious.
No, numbers wise, we're struggling. 1 second. Yeah, numbers wise, we're struggling. We started with 12. We're at 14. 2 more girls joined today. So yeah, we're definitely struggling with numbers. I thought everyone was, struggling as well, but it looks like most teams in D1 are strong. But in the inner city, we're definitely struggling.
Right. But I mean, not everybody's, really strong. I mean, you got, even Hendricken, they're at like 18, 19 wrestlers, where usually they are, through the roof. Scott Merritt is posting 18, and he may or may not have a 113. as a kid trying to get down, a future potential. But it's down across the board. I mean, when has Henderson had 18 wrestlers? Come on. When was the last time that happened? So we're all struggling. We're all trying to put it together. I'm a little bit fortunate, with some of the numbers that I have, and most of the weight classes covered. Hopefully, I'll have one forfeit going into each match.
Wow.
Hopefully not. I'm still trying to, pull some people in, but I mean, it's just the body. I mean, when you're down to scrambling for a weight class to try to fill it, at this point, why bother? I mean, how much are you going to be able to teach a new guy, at heavyweight or something like that? It's just very hard. But, there's some certain guidelines and restrictions. You got face coverings must be worn by all athletes, official staff, and spectators. And they opened up the spectators, by the way, to half capacity. So if your gym is 500 people, where you can have 250 spectators. We're good there because I can't remember the last time I had 250 spectators at a wrestling match. Yeah. And we have a pretty good draw, but we're usually around 130, 140 tops. So we got more to fill there. Well, how do you feel about the face mask thing, and how's that working out for you? And is it even necessary once they pop negative on a test? He doesn't want to answer.
He doesn't want to answer that.
This mask wearing thing is funny, but I have no feelings towards it because we have to abide by the rules.
Yeah.
However, after being negative, we're told that kids can still come out positive a couple of days later or whatnot. So I guess we have to, just to keep them safe and protected. What we have told students is, if they are able to vaccinate, because once you vaccinate, you don't have to worry about that, because you don't have to quarantine once you have the vaccination. So some students are going to do it, some students are not. We just gotta see what we have,
Yeah. Okay. So Vin, I'm going to kind of pose this question to you. If two wrestlers are vaccinated and they're wrestling 3 weeks after their second shot, and those wrestlers are 16 and older because they've opened that up now, as we know, do they still wear masks, or is that going to change somewhere along the line? Because why hinder him? Or do you just keep everybody at an even keel playing field? Because to me, if you pop negative on a test going to the venue and you've already been vaccinated in 3 weeks since your second shot, why would you have to do that? The answer is you don't. And I know that, and you know that, and everybody knows that. So do you think it's still going to be in play? That's the question.
I unfortunately do.
Yeah.
The CDC has lifted the quarantine period for folks that are vaccinated, and that's at their level. However, local policy, state policy, things like that, I haven't seen anything written on that yet. But I know even if you are a person one encounter with a COVID positive person, if you were vaccinated, you can still go to school, as far as I know. But I haven't seen a clear policy on it. As far as the mask wearing, yes, I like Eddie just got done saying, I think that's going to be the forbearing rule that we're all going to have to still work with. Do I agree with it? No, but it's the rules, unfortunately, that we're being given.
Right. Which, we got to abide by them and stick to them. And
I mean, you get to keep your athlete, because if they go to school for the day, then you can still wrestle that day as well. So no matter what, your kids that are vaccinated will be able to still come to practice. So you've always got your vaccinated kids that'll definitely be able to wrestle, but at the same point, that mask is definitely going to be there. We can't show a vaccination card at the head table and all of a sudden they don't have to wear a mask. And not
right.
We're going to be giving, somebody else, I wrestle Eddie. Eddie's vaccinated. I'm not. I'm wearing a mask. Eddie would beat me anyway, but it unfair advantage. I'll call it that right now.
Right. It just doesn't seem fair, and card swapping, and who knows what could come into play. So to stay safe from that, just across the board, masks this season are going to be a constant.
It's unfortunately the rule that we have to. It's the rule that we all have to abide by, which is again, I mean, it's up for contention. I mean, a lot of folks feel one way, a lot of folks feel another. However, it's written in the rules.
Right, and we're condensing this season down to a tri-meet, basically 6 meeting deal with 1 dual meet, I believe, and trying to cut it down so that there's at least you're getting 3 teams in 1 venue to wrestle each other, and sometimes 1 team's going to wrestle 2 teams, and sometimes not, based on the setup. But the formula seems to work, and again, we're just thankful to have that in play. Vic, what have you seen at practice as far as like how are the masks coming off during live wrestling, during drilling? Like, because for me, I haven't seen any masks really coming off. They come off, but it's pretty easy to put back on.
We haven't done any live wrestling yet, so
with the headgear on, the drilling, the masks seem to stay on. I'm surprised.
No, they come off. They come off even when they're exercising, even when we're doing like drills. And like I said, we haven't done too much like head-to-head stuff. I got like 5 kids on my team that I'm still showing them the neutral position, the top position, the bottom position, and then we started some breakdowns. We get very basic, like CLCF breakdown. By waist
back
ankle.
In the day. There's a picture of you, Vic, from back in the day. That's when they had robes. Huh? Is that a Cranston East robe?
Yeah.
That's what back when they used to wear the robes, and they found out that it was just way too hot. But that's very funny. So, Vin, I mean, you seem to be the guy who knows, what's going on with the regulations and with all the COVID stuff. So, taking temperatures. I've been taking temperature. I've been doing my part, obviously, listing everybody that's in the practice. Not only that, but listing who the workout partners are, because I'm trying to keep it to 1 drilling partner specifically. In fact, if that drilling partner gets hurt, the one that they were drilling with, guess what, is going to be sitting out as well. Pods of 4 tops. I've tried to go groups of 3, but it's the same pods of 4. So everybody's the same. So contact in that room is basically to 4 people, because even the workout partner, the drilling partner, it's usually 2 drilling partners get together with another group of 4. And luckily, I'm fortunate enough to have those pods close enough in weight to where if Diffusco's, training with Gooch and Gomez is training with Montefusco, those 4 wrestle in a pod. So the contact tracing and everything there is condensed to that. Are you able to do that? And I'm also taking, I was taking temperature even up till today and monitoring temperature. Is that still in play? Has there been any changes on that?
So as far as what I'm doing, as soon as we walk into the room on a Tuesday, which is, we're only practicing Tuesday to Friday. That's all we're allowed to practice. On Tuesday, as soon as you enter, we're not touching each other until you have the test. Unfortunately, a lot of what you're talking about now, as coaches, we have to be very careful with how we're going to analyze the situation, because if the situation that you're talking about, you've got a pod of 4. Well, 2 of those kids are vaccinated. Different set of rules for those 2 kids. They can still be there. The other 2, the one that could come up positive and the partner that was not vaccinated, he falls into a different set of category for quarantine rules. So we've got a bunch of different situations that can happen. And unfortunately, they change on a daily basis, because my Tuesday test is fine. My Wednesday match test is fine. But then they're going right back to school on Thursdays. And what they're doing in school Thursday, or who they're exposed to, or even if they're the ones that are carrying, it changes the game on who they've been around, because we can only contact trace from our room. We haven't contacted them throughout the day.
Right.
So the data can get changed real quick and real fast.
Okay. Everybody, don't wait for me to address. It is like 9:50, so we're around 10 minutes or so before we end the broadcast. So let's make this an open forum of talking. So if you want to weigh in, just feel free to jump in now moving forward.
I feel extremely lucky to have our nurse readily available for our students throughout the day. We had a kid, Kevin, who just had a headache all day, so he didn't want to risk anything. So he went to the nurse, got tested. Thank God he was negative, but he still had a migraine. So he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna risk it. I'm gonna stay home.
Right.
That was huge on his part, as he knows he wasn't feeling well. Something was going on. He went to the nurse, asked her a couple of questions, said, listen, what's going on with me? I feel like I have a headache. So come to find out, the kid does suffer from migraines, but he hadn't had one in a while. So she ruled everything out, and he still decided on his own, you know what, I'm just going to go home to not risk anything. So that was beautiful on his part. I'm hoping students are able to do that for us so that we can minimize the situation, and not have any big breakouts occur, because we're trying to learn from other sports. We saw how things occurred with basketball and how things may have occurred for football. We're trying to tell our guys, be more responsible and be more proactive. So they're actually listening, and we're just extremely happy about the fact that our nurse is readily available to us, and we have a testing site at Hope where they do the testing regularly with an actual state nurse that comes in and handles all of that. So yeah, there are days where they do
guys,
vaccines.
Eddie, can I ask you a question?
Sure, buddy.
The Providence kids that how often do they go to school? Because I don't even know exactly how many days my kids are in school.
So that's the problem. That's the problem where I'm struggling with numbers, Coach Vic. It's because they have alternating days. So it could be an A day or a B day. That's one. Two, a kid can choose to go remote at all times. And then three, as you know, in our district, they created a VLA program, which is a virtual learning academy. And those kids don't have to come in at all. So you have kids that are choosing to go remote, and you have kids at the virtual learning academy. So they don't have to come into the school at all whatsoever, which is where we're losing a lot of our kids to. So, yeah.
Also,
Eddie, do you have
the grades
remote that are still wrestling?
Yeah.
And again?
Yeah, as long as they're doing their schoolwork and they're eligible. And that's another problem I'm having. A few of my the grade just went in, right, Ed? For Providence?
Yeah.
So I got a couple of kids that have to straighten
Distance
things out.
Distance
That's
learning
another
kids
thing.
are still eligible for all high school sports.
Yes.
Yeah.
You still belong. The kid still belongs to the school. They just opted to do the virtual learning academy. But once that virtual learning academy is over, that student continues to go back to their original school. So yeah.
Okay. So
How are you guys with the kids coming in your room with excitement? Do they seem excited that it's finally here? Or do they feel like almost like the season should have been over already? How's the mood in the room?
They're excited to have something going. They want their season to go. They want something to do, especially in Providence, man. The kids they're looking for something to do, especially since all the other seasons were cut short. They want something to do. It's just strange that it's during the spring, because I have about 5 girls that I would normally tell go play softball, and they're trying to do both You know, they're trying to do both. So they're trying to do two sports. A kid wants to do outdoor field, track and field, because he's a thrower and he's got to do both at the same time. So I got to lose him one or twice a week so that they can go and try out for outdoor track. So, but they're truly, truly excited. I have 4 seniors they're just happy to have a season. The juniors are also happy to have a season. The freshmen, I only have 2 freshmen, and I told you guys at the beginning I had a ton of freshmen, a ton coming in. I only have 2 showing up, which is really sad. And it's again, it's the culture, it's what's happening, it's what they're seeing, and we're hoping that changes. You know.
Yeah, we're trying to keep a really positive environment in our room. I think it shows a lot of character and resiliency from some of the athletes that have been training extremely hard to have so many outside influences that can affect it. It's not easy to put a lot of time into something and know that, you know, they're always aware of injury, right? Or whether really for the most part we would reschedule. But to potentially just sit next to a student in class that tested positive, now you're going to be quarantined and be missing out potentially on, could be a state tournament or a big duel or the rest of the season, what have you. It's really tough for a kid right now to stay extremely motivated, knowing that in a drop of a hat it could just be gone.
They could just be considered a close contact and they have to quarantine. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
Insane.
So one of the things, obviously, that I think coaches need to be aware of and see in front of them too is this Binax test. Don't really look at it like, hey, this is the be all end all of you've got COVID, you don't have COVID. This is your gateway of reporting it to get the PCR. That PCR test after a certain number of hours. So if you're looking at 48, 72 hours, the kid goes in and gets tested. It comes back a few days later, and they've gotten a lot faster with this. It comes back negative. The kid's eligible again. So it's all in our timing of how we're going to do these matches, and it's all in the timing of how we're all doing it. I can agree with, if you've got a match the week of, or if there's an exposure to right before the state tournament, yeah, we're all going to take a hit on that. But as long as we kind of mitigate it the right way and the timing the right way, we can still get them PCR'd and we can still get them back in the room.
After how many days?
Don't quote me on it. Obviously, it's a bad thing to say on a recorded show. I want to say it's
can say that. If you say don't quote me on it, it's not official.
Outstanding. Then don't quote me on it. I want to say it's 48 hours after the exposure that you can get the PCR, and you'll get the results back within 24 to 48. So you get the rapid portion, and then you get the actual. And then if they're negative, they come right back to you in your room with no limitation.
Right back to eligibility unlimited. Yeah. There's a nice site right next to the airport that if you're looking for sites to test and all that, you go right in there. They do the rapid first, and then they do the long term, the PCR, and the rapid comes back, via text message or email, however you elected to go, and it tells you negative or positive. And then the PCR within 24 to 48 hours. And they've been getting really good at that.
Right now, the PCRs are coming back generally in about 24 hours. So
yeah.
When you go there, now your rapid test result does not get you back on the mat.
Right.
That is going to give you the foreshadowing of how your real test is going to come out. But
our squirrel waits 5 days. So if you travel to a state with 5%, or if you've been potentially exposed to someone, you can take a PCR test after 5 days, and then they even if you receive your result early, they want 3 days. So the 8th day you can come back.
Yep. Now again,
gets you back 2 days earlier than the original 10 now that they're at instead of 14.
Right, and again, it comes down to the coaching to know, hey, who do I have that's vaccinated? Because then those rules go out the window. So it's a very, very confusing time of being able to try to track all the data on top of trying to, manage and control and teach your team.
Right. Speaking of freshman states, initially it was a little leery now it's an actual possibility, as well as JV states, because the numbers are so low and the capacities have gone up. Who wants to weigh in on talking about that?
I'm really excited and hopeful that we're going to have it. I think that's the way we can think about it. Just like you said, you kind of will it, and if it doesn't happen, at least you were working and training towards it. And we've always talked about that's more than half the battle in wrestling, right? Is all the practice and hard work you put into trying to achieve that. But I think it's really important for some of our younger guys to have experience. I mean, Vinny was talking about being able to go to tournaments, and I know, all of you guys are trying at different times to get to different tournaments to see teams that are not normally in your division. And these were opportunities for some of these kids to be able to do that. And some of these young kids, that might be the only time that they might really be able to compete and even have a tournament. So they're missing out on a lot of those opportunities. And I think it would be really helpful for our kids and exciting for them. It's kind of like hitting that really good golf shot in golf. Like, like you have a win in a tournament, it brings you back, it wants you to be a part of the sport.
Absolutely. 100%.
I mean, when you've got freshmen and JV athletes that are going out there, those are crucial tournaments for us, only because they may not have a match, especially under the guidelines that we have this year, where we can only bring kids to the event that are guaranteed to have a match
at a max of 20.
Correct. So when we're already limiting their matches and all we're doing is being able to say, hey, you've got practice, by eliminating that tournament, we're essentially cutting short the future growth of our own programs. So to be able to have a culminating event for the freshman states and the JV states, that's a huge event for them. And like I said, that's the future of our own programs. We have to embrace that. I mean, losing those two tournaments is definitely going to have an impact. It's bad enough that we lost middle school wrestling this year. So none of us are going to see the influx next year of 8th graders. So when we've already lost the middle school year, now our memberships in middle school, 6th and 7th grade, they're not exposed or heard about it. So we're already hurting our memberships there. To not have a JV in freshman states, we're only hurting ourselves. We have to be able to let those kids get out there, perform, and allow them the same opportunities as their counterparts.
Absolutely, 100%. And like you said, with the freshmen, to have that tournament, and by the way, this year is probably the greatest year for that type of freshman state championship, even for a first-year wrestler coming in as a freshman, because it's going to be one of the other guys. And this is been stated that if you're wrestling in the freshman states, you're not wrestling as a freshman in the varsity states.
Yeah, I really don't see any reason why we shouldn't. To be honest, I obviously our COVID's not gone. It hasn't gone away, but we're in a better spot now than we have been. And other sports have successfully finished their seasons, and we're the only sport that is requiring us to test on the same day of our event. And if we're following those type of protocols, which you're putting those type of protocols in place to allow kids to be able to compete. So if you can go in pretty confident that every single kid that walked into that tournament just tested negative on a Binax, I don't see there being a reason why you wouldn't hold an event to allow athletes to be able to compete. It just, to me, would seem like just trying to kind of like not have to handle work with. There's some really serious issues, and Ed talked about losing some of his kids on his program, and as important as this is, I think we're doing our due diligence by testing our kids and following guidelines. Now it's important to really look at how kids are failing off our teams. They're dropping out of school. They're just going to video games and not playing sports. I think it's our responsibility to say, okay, we're following proper guidelines. Let's allow them to compete, and I feel like we can do that pretty confident and safely.
Right, because it's also keeping kids in school. I mean, it's keeping the kids engaged in school. It's keeping the kids wanting to go to school. When you take away certain sports and say, well, there's restrictions, and well, we're not going to have a JV states, we're going to have a freshman states. The numbers are going to go down because well, what do they got? Especially now we can only bring, if you have a full team, only 6 JVs. And let's face it, most teams are going to have tops 3 to 5 JV
I mean,
matches.
Tommy, the other thing to think about is obviously every one of us has already said that not only on our teams, but in our divisions and everything else, our numbers are way down.
Yeah.
All of our numbers are down. So if they're all down as a team, that means that collectively our numbers are down as a in a freshman count and in a JV count, as well as in our varsity count. So when we look at, hey, what's the exposure and what's the risk? Well, that also has to go down too. When you say normally I'd enter 4 kids into the freshman states, and now this year I've only got 1. So these tournaments can be done safely with reduced counts that we all know we're going to have.
Yep.
Being able to enter them into the varsity states if they're good enough. Colin's got kids that are good enough as freshmen. Eddie's got them. Me and Vic will struggle a little bit more with freshmen to be able to compete at that level, but to reduce them out of it and say, well, you were good enough to you were clear of Binax and you were clear of these other ailments last week, but now this week, hey, sorry, I know you were top 3 at JV and freshman. You can't compete. It doesn't pass the sniff test.
Right.
There's something wrong with that because we're dealing with reduced counts anyway, and the brackets are already going to get shortened. So if they've got guys, why can't they do it? It's just 1 more match. It's
right. And you're definitely speaking.
Your contact tracing is right there at a tournament in the bracket.
Yeah.
It's done for you, and it's electronic. So
right. And this coming off of the NCAA Division I National Championship, where you had 330 wrestlers plus the trainers and coaches and select family members or audience members without a single case coming out of it, which speaks volumes for wrestling, if done correctly, can be done correctly and can be done safely. Now, speaking of the Freshman State Championship, you're speaking my language coming from a back-to-back Freshman State Championship team in Cranston West. You know, I'm going to throw that in there. I was looking at 3-peat, and I'm not sure that I'm going to have the freshmen to be able to do that. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's a good opportunity for freshmen to have a Freshman State Championship. You can be a first-year wrestler and make podium and have some level of success, which will keep you in the sport because you won't have like a Gabriel Boysu in there as a freshman at the Freshman State Championship, because obviously he's going to be wrestling at varsity state championship. He's someone who you could possibly be a 4-time state champion without a doubt. Now you're talking Gabriel Boysu, who took 3rd in the Virginia Beach National Championship and won it at the Reno Worlds. So obviously, you know, Gabe is a special freshman and operating on a whole nother level. Now, you as a freshman at 126 coming in, going into a freshman state championship, don't have to worry about that major stud who's, you know, obviously going to win it, you know, walking backwards, especially against other freshmen, you know, is a big thing. So this is a big year to really encourage the freshmen and JVs, for that matter, to have something to work for. I think it's so important for the sport that already the numbers are enough and then some to have some level for the ones that are not wrestling varsity and for the freshmen to get in there, have a level of success, make podium, and then talk it up to their friends.
So I'm not saying anything against the Division I level, but clearly they're Division I. They've got bigger schools. They've got a lot more kids on their teams. But when you look at a freshman in JV states, especially with organization like mine, VIX, or in Division II or Division III as a whole, those 2 tournaments and success at them, it means a lot, and it does help grow our programs. So when we eliminate those programs, we no longer have varsity athletes that are going to go to the varsity tournament in subsequent years. They're crucial for the kids. They're crucial for the development of the kids, and they're crucial for the development of our programs and what we're ultimately trying to teach them. And all of us here are coaches, and we all know that the only thing that, you know, we're not only teaching our kids about wrestling here. There's a lot more behind this sport that goes into it and developing them in their minds and how they're going to succeed in life. I mean, I really feel strongly about, you know, the JV and the freshman states, and for them to be able to have that moment in the spotlight, it's crucial.
Yes. 100%, which is why it was created in the first place. It gives you that level of confidence, that level of achievement, that level of hard work being rewarded by being able to step on a podium and have a medal and have 50 strangers taking your picture and making you feel like you're bigger than life. Those are the things at that level that this sport needs to continue to have happen. So I hope that the talks of the freshman and JV state championship were not just talks, and that we somehow can make it happen, whether it be the week before the state championship or combined together with the state championship, just one tournament, because the numbers are so low. I mean, they really are a third of what they normally are. And that's a fact. So let's keep.
No, they usually have the youth tournaments a certain age, and then in the morning, and maybe the morning hours, maybe till noon, and then they bring the older kids in. Couldn't they do something like that? Just freshman, JV, and then I think or even if it's 2 days, because I think the numbers are going to be so low everywhere.
I think that the numbers are so low.
Freshmen, JVs are really going to be the low one. There's probably going to be a good amount of freshmen. Not as many as normal, we all know, but I think the JV is, if you're throwing your kids in JVs instead of taking them to the varsity, which, I'm probably going to do that with some of my new kids, because I'm not going to waste my time or their time, unless they got some ability. But see what I'm saying? It's like maybe they should be able to do that, especially JV.
The numbers are going to be so low that they're actually going to, we're looking at like a 16-man bracket. We're looking at like a 1-day state tournament, whereas in the past it's always been 2 days. The numbers are really that low. This is not inflated at all, even on a downplay. The numbers are just so low that we could probably do the state tournament coupled with the JV and freshman state tournament in 1 day in one building. Probably the building's big enough in capacity.
And we'll know more about numbers after this show is over and people are making comments like other coaches and they're saying, oh man, I only got 9 kids or I only got 12, 15 kids. Which
another dynamic to think about, at least one of the things that I'm looking at is, like I mentioned before, I've got athletes that are doing track and field as well as wrestling. One of my kids is a freshman who is doing both sports. So as a freshman coming out of a D2 school, the odds are very, very much against him to be able to perform well in a varsity state tournament. I think we can all agree to that. You do have some of them. But so the track and field state tournament is being held on the same day as the varsity state tournament. So my kid wants to wrestle. He's going to wrestle. But when it comes down to the 26th of June and we're looking at the varsity state tournament, the kid already placed as a freshman at the varsity cross country. I'm going to push him to the varsity cross the track and field event because he can pull medal there. He's going to feel more out of it and he's going to be more successful. If that's the case, that's what I'm going to encourage. So that's going to diminish the numbers even more. So when we've got other state tournaments going on in the same day, we're also going to reduce our numbers for those tournaments, which is why, 100% we should be holding, a kid like him, a prior tournament for the freshman, then he'd be able to complete both seasons with a major tournament.
Right. Well, you'd have to coordinate dates.
Is that the right date? The 26th for the field and track?
From what I saw from the track and field coach at Burrville that I'm dealing with, the schedule that they provided me said the 26th.
Yeah, because Mike won
do you
senior. Ben Fofana, he runs track, but they came in second in the state last year at the 400 or whatever. So,
well, someone like that,
I'm definitely going to lose him.
Yeah, which is tough. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
losses across the board. But I mean, we're having a season, and that's like the important thing. And the important thing,
Yeah,
like,
it is. It is.
it
I
is
told my
getting
kids
back in there.
this is going to be a practice year for most of you guys, especially your new guys. You're going to be.
Absolutely.
This is preseason for you guys, so you're just getting yourself ready for next season. And maybe a little bit of luck this year, a little bit of learning. I only got about 4 kids that have experience, and they're going to do okay.
Right. Whereas on my end, what came back was the wrestlers that I had. So the room is moving very quickly because it's not stalled by teaching newer wrestlers the basics.
Yeah.
So we're moving very, very quickly in the room and being able to get through a lot of material very quickly. But the divisions, for those that don't know, Division 1, A and B combined. I'm not going to separate by A and B because it doesn't matter. It's just a column. For Division 1, it's Bishop Hendricken, Charahoe, Coventry, Cranston West, Cumberland, Hope, LaSalle, Mount Hope, North Kingston, North Providence, Pontiac, and Woonsocket. Division 2 is Barrington, Burrillville, Central, Classical, Cranston East, East Providence, Lincoln, Pilgrim, Smithfield, South Kingston, Tollgate, West Warwick. And Division 3 is Central Falls with BVP Co-op, Davies, East Greenwich, Exeter West Greenwich, Johnston, Juanita Sanchez, Middletown, Mount Pleasant, Narragansett, Situate, Tolman Shea Co-op, and Westerly.
Middletown and Central Falls are out. So
Right.
Central
Thank you
Falls
for
is out.
mentioning that. Middletown and Central Falls.
yeah, they're out. Blackstone Valley.
I was just talking to Eugene today, but okay.
Did he say
Only
different?
due to space.
Because Warwick was supposed to be out across the board. They came back. Jerry Sabatelli, over at Tollgate is back in. Tom O'Connor at Pilgrim also back in the mix, but their numbers are way low, especially Pilgrim. And Tom, good friend of mine, known him for years, wrestled him, back in the day. He wrestled for Nashua. He was a 3-time Nashua or New Hampshire state champion, I should say, and now at Pilgrim and competing with the track and like the rest of us and numbers being way down. So I really feel we can have a state championship, freshman state championship, JV state championship, all on the same day, one day, bang it out and see what happens. What do you think?
See what happens, man.
See what happens.
I mean, we've got a lot of options. I mean, I brought it up in the last meeting about how, we have a building? Have we found a location? Wrestling in Burrillville this year, we're actually wrestling in the hockey rink. That's a massive area for mats. So when it comes down to space and everything else, if there's going to be a freshman or JV tournament, I can guarantee you I'll be contacting Eddie and Tommy saying, I'll host it. I got 4 sections where we can hold 80 different people in each section. So that's another discussion for another day, but.
Right. Well, let's just touch upon that a little bit. First of all, you're going to need a big area because you need to have set up 2 mats.
I've got 2 mats anyway, because the idea is going to be obviously 106 goes off mat A, 112 is going to go off mat B, 120 back on mat A to give us the wash time.
It's going to go back and forth. Give us that cleanse time. And for those that don't know, one of the rules, first of all, face coverings must be worn. Participation is limited to duels, tries, mostly tries with just 1 duel because it's 12 teams. And disinfectant the mats prior to competition, between each match, and after each of the competitions. So schools should use bucketless mop, like a Kennedy system mop, for disinfecting the mops. But it's still a wet mat. Okay, so if you got a match that happens and it's an overtime match That match ends. You start your cleaning system. You go over to mat 2, and you got somebody, that's a stud against a first year kid that that match is going to be over in about 20 seconds. Before you're even done with the first section, that mat needs to become available. So that's wherein lies the problem. However, there's a solution for it. We've talked with Tom Galligan where we can have an approved sterilizer cleaning system, which was used at the NCAA's to clean the mats, and those can clean the mats pretty effectively within 2 minutes, which is going to cut down on our time. I'm definitely getting one, and we'll be traveling with one. So if you're wrestling Cranston West, for those that are viewing and listening, and you guys that are on the panel tonight, know that we're going to be able to zip through and clean mat 1 in 2 minutes, while mat 2 is hosting the 113-pound match, and mat 1 will be ready in 2 minutes for the 120-pound match. So
yeah, we talked about a lot of the negatives of being in a season where we're sharing athletes, right? That it's not easy, as well as just the warm weather, right? In the end of the year, I know a lot of my kids, this is a big competition year, right? This is freestyle season. So it's very unique for them. And it's almost like they feel like they're stepping back, which you have to really try to motivate them there. But some of the positives is that, one, we've had a lot of time to plan this and think about it. A lot of the athletes are used to it, for lack of a better way of thinking about it. I think we have a really good way of contact tracing. I think schools are more efficient. We have more testing available. We understand how to quarantine easier, the schools and our teams. So all these things make it easier to have a state tournament. Many other states have already ran their state tournaments, and they've done so successfully. So it makes it a little bit easier for us. And even if somebody does become positive, you want to make sure everybody's safe and that they're okay, but it's not as alarming. They know how to quarantine. They've seen it. They've either had friends, family members had to. A lot of their family members are vaccinated by now. And if they're not, they're aware that what the severity of it is, and that who they need to stay away from if someone's in a high engaged, a high risk sport. So that knowledge is out there for everyone, and it makes it a lot easier for everybody to follow protocols and go through with it. So, I definitely am positive. I'm staying positive that we're going to have a full season and a state tournament. And I think it's something our kids should be excited about.
Absolutely.
Well said, Colin. And I like that. In fact, I like it so much. I like it to cap and end the show. Let's end the show on a positive note. Well done. Thank you, Ed and Colin and Vin and Vic, for staying up late with us tonight to get that information out to the masses, to the coaches, and to the kids that are wondering still what's going on, because there's so much information going out there that they need something like this. But we'll definitely end on a positive note. That's all positive things. Colin, again, thank you for capping it with that. And this is Snapdown Wrestling. We're here each and every Monday night with different guests to bring wrestling to you and bring you the latest and greatest information on what's going on or what's not going on. But right now, a season is going on. We're all very excited for that. So thank you for tuning in each and every Monday night at 9:00. And we do it at 9:00 simply because, I figured maybe if we have a match, it will run a little late and I'll still be able to report on the match. Speaking of which, we're also going to be broadcasting matches live stream through the Fans Only Sports Network, and with commentary and different coaches that are going to be streaming the different matches. And I'm going to be hitting you coaches up for information on your kids, just statistics, so that we can talk about them, tell them where they came from, who they're looking for, who they beat, who they, their rivals are, where they're going to school, all that information. Trust me, I'm not using it in some mastermind game plan to try to beat you. I'm doing it for the kids. I want them to get their exposure. I want them to be talked about as the match is going on, so that everybody can know who they are, where they came from, what their record is, and all that good stuff that they deserve to be talked about. But it's going to be a great season in that aspect, and it's on. So thank you guys again. I appreciate you. I love you guys. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for viewing. This has been Snapdown Wrestling with Tommy Lynch, powered by Fans Only Sports Network. Thank you again, guys. Be safe. Please follow the
Tom.
rules. Thank you.
See you guys.
Hey,
Thank you.
Coach Tommy,
guys.
don't ever call me and ask me about my guys. You can ask Matt Morrow about my guys. He knows them better than I do. All right.
Okay, you got it, Ed. I love you, brother. Good stuff.
Take care.
Well played, Eddie.
You too. All right. Thanks
Good night,
again,
guys.
Thanks for watching each and every Monday night. And please, coaches and kids, stay safe, follow the rules, follow the protocols and the new guidelines, and we'll have a successful season. That's all we ask. Let's make it happen. And good luck this season, guys, and be safe. Thank you. This has been Tommy Lynch with Snapdown Wrestling.